Joining us now is Congressman Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. He serves on the House Intelligence and Oversight Committees, and his district is just west of Chicago O'Hare, including Elgin and Schaumburg. Congressman, good evening.
Good evening, Joshua.
So this minimum wage provision in the House bill looks like it might not survive in the Senate bill. Are you cool with passing COVID relief minus the minimum wage in hopes of maybe coming back to it another time?
I'd like to see the minimum wage provision be part of the larger bill. As your viewers know, the national minimum wage right now is $7.25 an hour. That is completely unacceptable. Nobody can earn anything but poverty wages, earning 40 hours a week at $7.25 an hour. And so we need a hike in the minimum wage, whether it's part of this American relief package that ends up passing the Senate or as a standalone measure. It needs to be done.
What do you think was the strategy behind including it in the first place? I don't know anyone who honestly really believed that now was the time under these political circumstances to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It just kind of always seemed like a long shot at best.
I don't know the political strategy, but what I know is that my constituents have always been asking for an increase above the national minimum wage, or to have it raised, I should say. 21 states have not even adopted a minimum wage above $7.25, and several states have no minimum wage at all, Joshua. And so what we're trying to do here is trying to get past, finally, an increase in the minimum wage that the voters want and demand right now.
Talk about what you think regarding the near total support for this bill in the House. There were 2 Democrats who voted against it and criticized the non-COVID related spending and said that, in their view, the minimum wage hike could hurt small businesses. Congressman Jared Golden of Maine and Kurt Schrader of Oregon. What do you make of that?
Well, I was a former small business person. I paid more than $15 an hour, and most responsible employers do that. In this particular case, the minimum wage goes up to $15 over 4 years. There's a long ramp, a long adjustment period. But in any case, much of the spending in this bill is vital for not only making sure that we get healthy because of this healthcare crisis, but also to repair the economic damage. There's obviously money in the form of stimulus checks. There's a vital extension of unemployment insurance that's going to expire for 11 million people on March 14th. Of course, there's aid for small businesses. There's aid for schools to reopen, as well as vital state and local aid and vaccine and testing aid. All of this is essential, Joshua, for us to get out of this thing. My constituents are demanding it. 60% of Republicans support it, and almost 80% of Americans support this bill.
I just want to note, by the way, according to the Department of Labor, there are indeed 5 states that do not have a minimum wage required: Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. There are 29 states that have a minimum wage higher than the federal minimum. The highest is in the District of Columbia. That's the only one that requires a minimum wage of $15 an hour. That's according to figures updated this year from the Department of Labor. Congressman, what do you see in terms of the future of this bill in the U.S. Senate? I imagine that with the ruling from the parliamentarian about the minimum wage, that might clear the way for Senators Sinema and Manchin to offer their support, maybe break a tie with the vice president if needed.
Well, I think that Senator Wyden and Senator Sanders are trying to potentially adopt measures that would comply with the reconciliation rules, and at the same time try to encourage businesses, both small and large, to adopt a minimum wage above $15 an hour over 4 years. In any case, I do think that the Senate is going to act expeditiously on this overall package. And in any case, we also have a deadline of March 14th that we have to meet to make sure that we extend unemployment insurance. So I think President Biden will get something on his desk by March 14th.
What do you think is the most important part of this to the constituents in your district? I feel like there's a whole lot of people who never face towards your district because they're looking toward Lake Michigan when they leave O'Hare. But for those neighborhoods around and west of Chicago that you represent, is there a piece of this package that you're hearing is the most vital to them right now?
Well, interestingly, I also have the runways of O'Hare, not the terminals, thanks to gerrymandering. But interestingly, all of these components are mentioned repeatedly and have been over the last several months. The piece that I've been spearheading and that Republican mayors, Democratic mayors, others bring up repeatedly with me is state and local aid. And just to give you a sense of why that state and local aid is desperately needed right now, we actually have a town in my constituency called Elgin, which now is not running a fire engine 3 days a week because they don't have the money to do it. So you just hope that as a resident that there's not a fire on any of those 3 days that would require that engine. And that's ridiculous. That's why this $350 billion in state and local aid is vitally needed to prevent a cut in services or a hike in taxes during this pandemic. And this is one piece of the package that is brought up to me repeatedly by both my constituents as well as elected officials on both sides of the aisle.
Wait, I want to make sure I heard you right. You're saying that in Elgin, there's no fire truck service 3 days a week because of the budget trouble that they're in?
At one fire station, they are not running one of their trucks
at one station.
3
Gotcha.
days a week. Yeah, exactly. And so it just puts an additional burden on the rest of the fire stations. And it's one of those unnecessary cuts that you face when we really have the aid to prevent that from happening.
Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. Congressman, I appreciate you starting us off tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joshua.